Thanks so much for coming. My name is Seth Smith. I'm a public services librarian here with the Daniel Boone Regional Library. And what I wanted to let you know is that you can send in chats anytime during this presentation. A couple of housekeeping items. The chats you can send in at any time. What I can't really answer them during the presentation, but once I finish, I can definitely answer them. And actually, if you can hear me okay, send me a chat just letting me know. I want to make sure that this is being broadcast just fine. So thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming. And let me go ahead and get started with this presentation. So we are here with the Daniel Boone Regional Library promoting media literacy through our library system. It's been a really good opportunity to reach out to the community. So there are two resource partners in this grant that has been part of this media literacy initiative. IREX is one of them. It's an acronym for the International Research and Exchanges Board, based out of Washington, D.C., as well as the Reynolds Journalism Institute from the University of Missouri. So IREX is a leader in providing media literacy curriculum worldwide through its Learn to Discern educational initiatives. I really want to give a lot of kudos to IREX for the great assistance with this presentation and project. Also, the Reynolds Journalism Institute has provided a lot of guidance for us through their wide network of journalists and scholars working on current news literacy projects throughout the nation. We also want to mention we have a couple of books that were part of this grant. And I want to also mention that this grant is part of a Institute for Museum and Library Services project. And the funds are dispersed through the Missouri State Library. So we have some free books that we can supply. The first one, Keep Calm and Log On, Your Handbook for Surviving the Digital Revolution, is one of them. For any attendees, you can pick one or the other, and we can send them to you, or you can pick them up at the library. The other one is True or False, a CIA Analyst Guide to Spotting Fake News by Cindy Otis. These are both recently published, and I think they've got a lot of really great information in them about handling fake news, and basically there's a lot about the digital world that is very confusing to a lot of people right now. So I would say that Keep Calm and Log On talks a lot more about kind of navigating that somewhat frightening world at times. And the True or False book has a lot of really interesting anecdotes about news literacy as well. Throughout the last 5 years, there's been some really interesting controversies surrounding it. So with this presentation, I also want to mention what we're trying to emphasize. We aren't telling you how or where to get your news sources. It's a strictly nonpartisan initiative. There's no partisanship to it at all. What we're trying to do is give you some tools on how to process media and news information. So in short, we want to give you the tools to distinguish between news and reported facts and misinformation. So that could be incorrect information or disinformation, which is information designed to mislead or create harm toward a person, group, or institution. Also to have emotional resilience, to recognize when a headline or story is meant to be emotionally manipulative, and also to feel confident in your skills to evaluate articles and stories before you share them with others. Also, to use tools and practices that make you a better and more confident media consumer. I know doing these have really helped me become a lot more confident in dealing with the digital world. I'd like to say that a lot of my thoughts about the digital realm now come from my teenagers who are obsessed with smartphones and TikTok, and trying to help them navigate that world is very tricky. So I think this can help many different generations in learning a little bit more about flying their way through this uncertain world. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to share my screen, and we'll have a short little presentation here, and then anything you want to ask during the presentation, just send it through chat, and I'll try to tackle those questions after I finish the presentation. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Just a second here. All right. Okay. Yeah. So again, I want to emphasize that the Institute of Museum and Library Services is the main sponsor of the grant that's been promoting this particular initiative. IREX and the Missouri School of Journalism have been really helpful as well. So big kudos to them. Yeah, information consumption in the US. Information consumption is incredibly common as far as what we're exposed to on almost all levels of our daily life. We live in a media saturated world. It's almost impossible to avoid. Most of us spend a great deal of time or waking hours staring at screens, whether that be through school or work. And in the case of the COVID era, using Zoom or other digital platforms at home. It seems like we've been basically kind of obsessed with the digital world, partly because of COVID this last year. The statistics are overwhelming. TikTok is downloaded more than any other app. Getting a lot of pressure from my girls to download TikTok myself. I'm refusing at this point. We send nearly 13 million texts per day. We watch over 4 million videos on YouTube and generate more than 4 million likes on Facebook. So it's just, it's kind of our world right now. It's easy to become obsessed with it. 90% of the data in the world today has been created in the last 2 years alone. And our current output of data is roughly 2.5 quintillion bytes per day. And that's just a staggering amount of data. And it's just increasing as we go forward. More and more people are getting the internet access throughout the world. So there are some organizations that are really trying to help us make our way through these very complex data streams. The Internet Society is one of several organizations that offer free webinars on how to manage your digital footprint. This is a very important consideration, especially during the COVID era. So many of our interactions have gone online. Your footprint isn't just confined to internet searches and online banking activity. It is indelibly linked to how you interact with others on social media, and what you also post on your social media news feeds. Yeah, so this is a pretty amazing statistic. 48% of adults under 30 now get their news via social media, and that's according to a Pew Research Center study released in 2020. This is kind of blows me away. And I think it's increased every year since 5 years ago. I think mainstream news outlets had a lot more sway, but now I think so many people are just getting their news off of social media. Is part of that 24/7 news cycle that was started in the 1980s with cable channels like CNN. And I'm also I get most of my news off of Google News on my smartphone. So it's, it's something that it's a pitfall for me as well. So, we're not trying, as I said, we're not trying to tell people where to get their news. I mean, social media has been a great way to communicate. I haven't seen a lot of my extended family over the last year, so it's been really good to communicate that way. Who doesn't want to see awesome cat photos on Instagram during pandemic? That's a picture of Stella and Eliza, are two of our cats. And YouTube is also a really easy way to access your news. I do get a lot of my news on YouTube on my smartphone. It's just a quick and easy, accessible way to do that. And I think that's where it's really become hard for people to justify, getting a newspaper or some other one of the older forms of media, because it's just so quick and fast to get news from digital sources. However, social media can make you feel bad. More than 1 in 4 young U.S. adults who spend about an hour per day on social media tend to have very high indicators of depression. I know my daughter is one in particular who spends maybe a little bit too much time on Instagram. There's a lot of comparisons that she does with other girls on her soccer team. She's a freshman at Hickman, and so it's just really, I think it's something to be very wary of, even as an adult. I know I feel social media is something that can influence me negatively as well. And not to put too fine a point on it, but social media, it does exist purely to sell things. It's a monolithic capitalist venture, and one of the reasons that Facebook has established algorithms is that they appeal not only to the bubble that one exists in, but it also targets ads based on one's buying preferences and interests. So algorithms don't only curate and narrow the scope of what we see on social media. They do the same for just about everything we do online, whether that's Googling or other type of web searches, and YouTube searches, and our cell phone news apps as well. So what your online search turns up depends on your past search history, what you've clicked on, your overall digital habits. Search algorithms take into account all that digital exhaust that our online activities generate. And even stuff like the autocomplete suggestions that search engines offer you, you type in your searches, it really depends on your search history. So it's all algorithm dependent. Deeply embedded into this is Google AdSense, where we see a lot of ads pop up on many of the websites we go to. Social media and search engines, aside from maybe DuckDuckGo or Mozilla, are capitalistic ventures meant to make a tremendous amount of money. That's always something to remember. So also, we have to think about what forms does media take. So there's reporting, facts, information, and statistics. So that's kind of our general idea of what traditional media is all about. But also, we have opinion pieces. There's propaganda, which we've kind of encountered the last couple of years. More and more in our news media, public relations, social advertising, and then commercial advertising. So all this media is basically trying to get us to feel something about a particular news item or story, aside from reporting, it's a very emotionally, there can be certain emotionally manipulative stories out there. So with that combined with the 24/7 news cycle and the social media platforms, there are all these emotive ways of messaging that are used. And one of the things I like to recommend attendees to these programs is, if you have a piece of paper handy, maybe jot down some thoughts. So what devices do you get information from daily? Is it TV? Is it radio, email, or smartphones? What channels or platforms do you obtain this information as well? So, I used to listen to NPR a lot. I don't as much anymore because I just I got pulled into Google News as just basically my only news source on my smartphone. And then also think about how much time do you spend on each of these things per day. So on average, I would say I spend far too much time on my smartphone. And there are some apps that actually track how much time you spend on even particular news sources or social media. Very illuminating. You realize, gosh, I spend a little bit too much time on a lot of different social media platforms that maybe I should avoid, especially Instagram. Yeah, and also, what about other people? Do you get some of this information? Do you get a lot of your news information from other people? I know there's been a lot less time to have dinner table conversations. I know now that I've gotten to see my parents again. Now I'm fully vaccinated. It's been really nice to sit down at the table and talk about news, but their news is different from mine. So think about that as well. So the next slide, I'm going to show a short video. This is from IREX and our very verified online course on media literacy. And let me go ahead and start the video. You should be able to hear the sound. Send me a chat if you can't, but this should go through just fine. So just 1 second.
The 2018 Global Digital Report by We Are Social and Hootsuite shows that more than 4 billion people around the world use the internet. In 2017, almost 1 million people started using social media daily. For the first time, that's equivalent to more than 11 new users every second.
Social media is our reality. It's where we spend a lot of time communicating with our friends, colleagues, and relatives. Moreover, social media has given each of us the power to create, distribute, and share content to thousands of users in an instant. On social media, you will find the official materials of reputable news publications that meet the standards of journalism. But you will also find content from bloggers, opinion leaders, relatives, friends, colleagues, and so-called experts who present opinions as fact. Social media content circulates without much, if any, regulation or control. What's more, not all users make a habit of checking the reliability of the information they receive and share. This creates opportunities for the spread, either intentional or unintentional, of false information and misinformation. In addition, we cannot fully control what information gets into our social media feeds. The information we see is filtered by algorithms. In order to better understand user preferences, Facebook collects user data online. Based on our likes, the links we click, the locations we tag, the affiliations we have, and much more, these algorithms personalize the content we see and select the content they have identified as being most relevant for us. For example, if you are searching for a new car online, don't be surprised if your Facebook newsfeed offers you auto loans. Based on user preferences, social media platforms select the pages that might interest users most, and may bypass interactions with users or pages that are affiliated with opposing groups or express differing opinions that could cause users to visit the platform less often. So, every time we see Facebook, the content we see is affected in some way according to this system.
Prior to 2018, Facebook had been buying information about offline user behavior from major marketing and analytics companies such as Axiom, Epsilon, Experian, Oracle Data Cloud, TransUnion, and WPP. Most of these companies operate globally, with offices in the Americas, Europe, and Asia. There is an ongoing controversy around these issues. As a result of public pressure, in April 2018, Facebook updated its data policy, indicating that it no longer used the information received from third parties. But it did not prohibit businesses that promoted their products and services on Facebook from doing so.
Instagram works in a similar way as Facebook and prioritizes the moments you care about. YouTube's stated goal is also to help viewers find the videos they want to watch. In other words, they prioritize the content in your feed using data primarily obtained from your previous activity on the site, such as your search and view histories. In contrast, Twitter's algorithms work a bit differently. Twitter structures information displayed in its feeds in chronological order and uses algorithms to simply change the order of relevance of tweets. Here is more good news for you. You can disable these algorithms in your settings. In conclusion, when using social media as a news source, be on guard for opinions, manipulative content, and other forms of algorithm-driven misinformation. You may not always be in control of the information in your feeds, but you can recognize the means by which it got there and resist the urge to share it further without examination of its source and potential biases. In the end, it's up to you to decide how you interact with the information you see online. Distinguish facts from opinions and do not share unverified content. Care before you share.
Yeah, I really like that idea, care before you share. I know when I used to be on Facebook, I don't really have an account anymore, but I certainly was not so great about that sometimes. So I think that has a really good message. So next part of this presentation, I'm going to share some tips that we have on how to safely navigate this world on your own. Some of these are common sense. Some of them aren't so much, because there is a lot of tricky stuff out there. So the first one is basically common sense. Consider the source. Click away from the story to investigate its site, its mission, and its contact information. A great example of this is it's a satirical website. Some people might have heard of it. It's called the National Report. Basically, there was this article that said solar panels drain the sun's energy, experts say. As you can see, there were over 1,800 comments on this particular article, and most of them were believers. These were people who were actually misled by this particular website. It's actually, if you go to the About page, however, it says National Report is a news political satire web publication, which may or may not use real names. Any resemblance to the truth is purely coincidental. Advice given is not to be construed as professional. If you're in need of professional help, please consult a professional. Just very tongue-in-cheek. There are a lot of these websites out there, though, that really kind of skirt the line between satire and real-looking sites. So it's very easy to share these on social media and not really know what you're getting into without checking the source page. And also read beyond. Headlines can be outrageous in an effort to get clicks. And what's the whole story? So this is a great example of mainstream news, reliable to some people. Some people will also question how reliable CNN is, but it's known as a mainstream news source, and it's got this kind of clickbaity headline: "Ebola in the air, a nightmare that could happen." Really, it's not actually. It's very improbable that a hemorrhagic fever like Ebola could become airborne, and scientists say there's absolutely really no chance of it happening. But this headline maybe kind of leads you into this, and it's frightening. I've honestly seen a lot of these types of headlines related to COVID as well. And COVID has been horrific and such a terrible scourge the last year. But there have been a lot of headlines on mainstream news sources that have been really, in some ways, quite hysterical. And I think it's good to be able to see through that as well. Also, clickbait. Jimmy Fallon's half smiling face here is appealing, but if you click on that, you're probably not going to go anywhere that you want to go. Clickbait is generally found on really reputable sites. The Columbia Daily Tribune has basically clickbait at the bottom of their web pages. It's a way for these news agencies to get some revenue. They're so starved for revenue right now, especially since classified ads are almost completely gone. And that was the traditional source of revenue for most of these traditional news sources. So yeah, don't click on clickbait. It's easily, you see it on all kinds of web pages, and it usually takes you to a website that is can be very spam driven, can even have viruses, and just not a good place to go. Yeah, so check the author. Do a search on the author. Are they credible or real? I'd really like to give this particular example here. This is of course, a satirical webpage about the Pacific Northwest tree octopus. It looks very real, though. If you look at it, you could think, yeah, is this real or not? There's all this like activities and links and media tabs, and so if you read a little bit about this, it can be slightly misleading. There are a lot of web pages out there like this. However, if you go to the About page, you will see that the author of this article is this person named Lyle Zappato. He's involved in the Zappato Productions, Interdimensional, Serving the Paranoid since 1997. And it's a very strange person, and obviously not legit as far as a news item goes. So kind of drilling down and figuring out if these are true or not sometimes just takes a couple of clicks and figuring out who the author might be. Interestingly enough, on Snopes.com, they talk a little bit about this, and I want to give a shout out to fact-checking sites like Snopes.com or factcheck.org. They do a pretty good job of doing some fact-checking on a lot of news articles. I also think the Poynter Institute is probably the best one out there. They have a lot of news literacy initiatives through their institute, and PolitiFact is the particular fact-checking site that the Poynter Institute is involved in. But according to Snopes, It is false. And also, it's interesting. It says it follows up and says this website is so well done. It's frequently used in internet literacy tests. When researchers at University of Connecticut's Neig School of Education asked 25 seventh graders to examine the website, 24 of those students concluded that information regarding the Pacific Northwest tree octopus was very credible. The students came to this conclusion despite the site's multiple references to Sasquatch and the elusive mountain walrus. So yeah, there are a lot of these sites out there, and I think my daughters who are 11 and 15 in particular seem to be more easily misled than I had previously thought with some of their the internet searches that they've done and told me about. So another thing to look out for is opinion pieces. A lot of people share opinion pieces online as news, where it's clearly states this is an opinion piece. This is about the Mohammed bin Salman purchasing Newcastle United. It's an opinion piece about that. And obviously, it's not something that's a news item, but a lot of times these are shared as facts. Also, it's flagged as 4 months old. It's through The Guardian. This is something really cool that The Guardian's doing, that a lot of people share older news items, and The Guardian is part of the initiative to help identify what's old in their digital realm. Also, supporting sources. Click on those links, determine if the info given actually supports the story. For instance, peer review is really something that for scientific information is very important. So peer review is known as refereeing in some academic fields. It's a process of subjecting an author's scholarly work to the scrutiny of others who are experts in the field. It's used primarily by editors and publishers. They select and screen submitted manuscripts that are worthy of publication. And then, there's a rigorous process of basically determining if these are valid or not. So some publications that have not undergone peer review are likely to be regarded with suspicion by scholars and other professionals in the field. So this is actually an article that was published claiming that the SARS-CoV-2 genome was most likely manufactured in a lab. There is a lot of controversy about that, actually. It seems like the verdict is still up in the air about that. But this is actually published. This was not published in a scientific journal. It's published in an open source journal. It was not peer reviewed. So people were sharing this online a ton late last year, and it was pretty misleading because it does look semi-official, and that's definitely a problem. Yeah, so as we were talking about, also check the date. Reposting old news stories doesn't mean they're particularly relevant to current events. So when I was on Facebook, I was guilty of this. It was easy to find, you kind of exist in your own world of confirmation bias and your own bubble. It's easy to find old articles that might kind of fit your narrative of a particular event. The Guardian did start flagging these. It's a really good initiative. This is actually the Guardian's news about old news on social media is actually more than 1 year old, so it's flagged as that. I think it's reposting old news stories is often a common ploy used by partisan groups on social media sites to promote their agendas, and it's not it's not valid news, not at all. And finally, is it a joke? So, so much of our current news stream recently has felt a little bit satirical at times, and there are still some sites that their stock and trade is a satire, and The Onion is a great example of that. This is someone who had shared an Onion article. The SeaWorld employees place orcas in plastic bags of water while cleaning tanks, just like we would with goldfish. It was someone had actually shared that as a fact, whereas it's completely absurd and part of the Onion's large scale effort to put all kinds of interesting satirical fake news out. The problem is, I think a lot of people are stumbling across satirical sites that seem real, and with barely a lot of news stories that are not very well. They really skirt that line between satire and news. So those are much easier to misunderstand and to mislead people. The Onion usually has pretty clear-cut satire, although even the last couple of years, sometimes it's been hard to tell. Also, check your biases. Consider if your own beliefs could affect your judgment. So I know, I live in my own filter bubble. I have a tendency, just like everyone does, toward embracing information that supports my beliefs and rejecting information that contradicts my beliefs. And so I think that's a natural human tendency. We all want to do that. We all want to feel comfortable in our own world. But I think it's very worthwhile to look at other news sources that are completely contrary to your own political beliefs, and even checking out newscasts by stations or platforms that are completely contrary to what you might believe in politically. I think that's always worthwhile. You can kind of get to understand the other side a little bit better. Also, we do have there's this really cool media bias chart, which examines key English language publications throughout the world, rates them according to their political orientation, their interpretation of the news, whether it contains propaganda or misleading information, or whether opinion is fair or persuasive. You can actually download this for free on from their website, and as part of our resource page, which I'll show here in a bit. That is something that I really encourage people to take a look at. This media bias chart. It's very, very interesting. And also, I want to say if you will have my email address after the end of this presentation. So if you would like anything, for instance, like the resource page, or we do have a survey at the end as well that will ask about some questions about the presentation, as well as if you want one of these books. But we can definitely provide you with the resource page as well. Also, I do want to give a shout out to the University of Missouri and their Trusting News project. Was July of 2017. Some things have changed since then, but it's definitely worth taking a look at. This is from our local University of Missouri journalism school, and there's a lot of really interesting information there as well that might be worthwhile looking at. It's also on our resource page. Yeah, so ask the experts. Ask a librarian or consult a fact-checking site. I do want to say that as librarians, we feel that we're really on the front lines for assisting patrons with this news literacy education. All of our staff have been through basic news literacy training. And many of the professional librarians like myself have offered these news literacy courses. We want to keep doing this into the future, even after the grant ends. And so, with partnering with the Reynolds Journalism Institute, we've realized that they're working with a lot of extension agents across Missouri who are trying to get this news literacy information out as well. Finally, the Columbia Public Schools have for several years integrated iCivics training into their high school civics course curriculum. And this is a great learning module, not just for high school students, but also for anyone interested in news literacy in general. I want to say that this, as part of our resource page, we do offer this How to Spot Fake News poster. It's really a really quick and easy poster that I've taken snippets from. At one time we had one of these hanging in one of our staff areas. It's a free download, very, very worthwhile poster. So lastly, I'm going to show another little video clip. The question is, can you believe everything you see? I think as we go a little bit further into the future, we're going to see more and more what are called deepfakes, which are complicated by technology like this. So not to give too much away, but this was actually a video about the Star Wars franchise brought back the great British actor Peter Cushing and used CGI in basically bringing him back to Rogue One. The digital replica was almost completely indiscernible from the real Peter Cushing. So let me play this quick little snip here. Take a look.
He's there, sir, on Scarif.
The original plans for this station are kept there, are they not?
Charmed to the last.
I will tell him that his patience with your misadventures has been rewarded with a weapon that will bring a swift end to the rebellion. I will tell him that his patience with your misadventures has been rewarded with a weapon that will bring a swift end to the rebellion.
Yeah, not to scare people, but I think this is something that's going to really complicate things as well. It's the use of CGI and other methods to basically virtual reality looks more and more like reality itself. So it's a brave new world out there in some ways. So yeah, this is our resource page right here. Some select resources from this presentation. And yeah, we absolutely we'll send that out for anyone that's interested in our resource page. I'm also want to promote these books again. Keep Calm and Log On, Your Handbook for Surviving the Digital Revolution, and True or False, the CIA Analyst Guide to Spotting Fake News. As part of the grant, we are able to distribute these books. One of the things I wanted to mention is we, at one time, had planned on doing all these presentations in person. So what we can do at this point is actually mail them out, or you can come to the library and pick one of these books up. So there should be a short survey after the end of this presentation. And you can just let us know if you'd like a book, fill in the survey with your name and address, so we can send one out, or we can also have it here for you at the library. There's also some cool swag that we're going to send with it. We have a computer cleaning cloth, and we have a couple other things, stickers and stuff like that. So there's you can keep promoting this great initiative. So actually, I want to open it up for any questions through chat. If anyone would like to ask me some questions, let me just make sure nothing has come through right here. Oh, Suzanne, thank you so much. Well, we will go ahead and get these one of these books to you. Just let us know in the survey. You can just let us know your address, or you'll just pick it up at your So the resource page. We definitely would love to give this presentation to Kiwanis, and that's one of the things we're doing. We're reaching out to other organizations. We've done this throughout our our whole initiative. So we really want to get out to the community even more, even after the grant ends. Linda Romine is asking fact check websites. Let me go ahead and put those down real quick. So the first one is Snopes.com. And then factcheck.org is another one. The Pointer Institute is another great place to. So I'm going to put down politifact.org. I would say PolitiFact is probably the best place to go if you're looking for true. Basically, if you're looking for information about fake news stories or true or false information regarding politics, that's what they do. The Pointer Institute is the place that hosts it. So. So Peggy's asking, how can an ordinary citizen tell if a political ad or video contains a deep fake? So that's a really tough question. I think what we're telling people at this point is that if it seems implausible, if it seems a little off, it probably is. The hardest thing about this, though, is that, like I was showing you with the Star Wars replica, it's so hard to tell if something is a deep fake anymore that I would say there's a lot of opportunity to mislead ordinary citizens. I would say if it's a politically motivated deep fake, something like PolitiFact is a great way to check. You just go to their search field and would enter in, for instance, a great example of something that happened recently was a couple of years ago was the Pizzagate, where several websites came out with these news announcements that there was basically a sex trafficking ring that was posted out at the basement of several pizza joints in Florida, I believe, and a lot of people believed it. There was a horrible incident related to that, and a place like factcheck.org or a website like PolitiFact, you could plug in some information about that and find that it actually was a fake. But when it's happening in real time, it's really hard to determine that. I think you just have to use, again, it's a common sense thing. It's like if it seems a little sketchy, a little off, it probably is, and that's something that it's hard to express how frustrating it can be as a parent of two young women, where they're misled a lot by what they see on YouTube, especially. And I really wish that things were different, and I hope things get better. Yeah, so Patricia's asking, I often wonder how much misinformation comes from sources, people outside our country. Yeah, that's also been a real problem, especially on social media sites like Twitter and Facebook. You get these fake accounts. Really, what we have found is that, in doing some research with it, that these fake accounts happen both on the left and right. It's not necessarily a partisan thing. It's usually it's a fake actor trying to stir up trouble on any sort of political spectrum. These, unfortunately, most of these are coming from Eastern Europe and especially Russia. That's something that's happening a lot still with social media, and a lot of times we were seeing a lot of times it's happening on Reddit as well. That's anonymous anyway, and a lot of people are bad actors are getting on there and creating a lot of trouble. So it's common, because there are a lot of misinformation comes from outside the country, and mostly in these fake social media accounts. Yeah, these are awesome questions. Just they're perfect for this. Yeah, anybody have any other questions at all about? Yeah, one thing I do want to say is that I do want to emphasize again that this is completely nonpartisan. We really, as one of our goals in this library in particular, is that we want to really get this information out to everybody. It doesn't matter really what political spectrum you're on. We just think it's having the resilience to deal with certain kind of difficult aspects of the digital world, and also having the ability to be a savvy media consumer. Right? That's kind of an important civics lesson for everybody. So I hope you got some good information from this, and we look forward to getting you some books, as well as the resource page. And one thing, if I just want to, you should have my email address from the survey, but I do want to let you know that it is smith@dbrl.org if you wanted to email me something, just a follow-up question or something like that. So anyway, thanks so much for coming, everybody. And we're doing these presentations all over the community. Hopefully we'll keep doing them as long as there's a digital world, so forever. So I really appreciate everybody taking the time to